Hello, Fightful Faithful. Let's try that again. Hello, Fightful Faithful. I am Robert D. Felice with Fightful Gaming, and I'm here with the man behind Mark Out, the wrestling card collection game. Now, why don't you introduce yourself to the people and how this whole project got started?
What's up, everybody? So my name is Shannon Williams. I am the creator of Markout. It has gone over several iterations over the past few years. Most recently went by Spot Caller, so you might also know me by that name. And I'm just a wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling fan who got into video game development by chance, spent years and years in the community creating different wrestlers in different arenas, and eventually decided to make my own wrestling game. And after years of me trying to figure out how to make games and bumping my head and different things like that, finally came to an understanding of what I will be capable of, and that is Markout. And Markout is essentially a game, and I just have some physical cards here to show off. So
Nice.
You'll actually collect cards like this in game. Each card is a move. So these are the Enziguri cards, for example, that you can see here. And you play it just like any traditional card game where once it's your turn, you choose a card to throw out. If your card is successfully thrown out, and this is a system I'm adding in right now, I can go into detail later on, but if that card is successfully thrown out, you'll actually see your wrestler do the move on your opponent in 3D. So it's a fully 3D animated card game, and yeah, I can't wait. It'll be on Steam Early Access August 26th. You can actually wish list it right now.
That's awesome. Now, the popular wrestling card game is on mobile, and it's WWE SuperCard. Did that game influence you in any way? Was that something you looked at and said, okay, I can do this, and I can do it from a, create your own universe perspective?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I played SuperCard years ago, and it was like when it was really first coming out and getting popular. And it was never something that kept my interest for long. And I don't know what it was. I think it was just the element of using wrestlers as cards. I'd never been into card collecting as much as I am now. Like over the years, I've grown into more. I'm trying to see if I have my Yu-Gi-Oh collection anywhere. But yeah, so I didn't really catch on early on. I just had the game on my phone. But there was another game that came out. It was Animation Throwdown, and it was Family Guy, American Dad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Fox game. So it had like Roger and everybody.
Yeah. And I was playing that game, and I just would randomly pull my phone out and start playing that game. And I started looking at different elements once Markout started coming together, because there's so many different influences that craft and Markout. And I was like, okay, well, I'll kind of use this game as an idea base for Markout. So it doesn't play like SuperCard at all. And that's why I wanted to really get into SuperCard some, because when people see the game, they always think SuperCard, is it a SuperCard ripoff? Nothing like SuperCard. Each card is a move. It's not a wrestler. And you actually play a full match. So you craft your decks, and you can throw out probably about 10 to 20 cards in a match, and then you watch the match happen. Only thing that's closely related to SuperCard is it's wrestling and it's a card game. So people always put those two together.
That is fair. Now, have you ever played, this is way back, but With Authority? It was a WWE game from like 20 years ago, but this was like their first take on, hey, let's do a card game exactly as you're describing it.
So I never got to play it, but I did see it. I seen gameplay of it, and that one was where each card was you had a picture of a wrestler doing a move, right?
Right.
Yeah, I remember seeing footage of that, but I never got to play it myself, and that is probably the closest comparison to what Markout is.
Now, you mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh, and I got that vibe from when you said you're working on a feature where if you do the move, it happens in 3D.
Yeah.
Do things like that play a role in this? Like, are you like, hey, Pokemon is really big right now, let's try to capitalize on that? Or is this just this is something I can do to add to the wrestling space, which is really growing in terms of video games, and you wanted to put your stamp on it?
Yeah, so I will say, I'm gonna be 100% honest to say it's a little bit of everything, because I'd wanted to make a wrestling game for years, since at least 2015. I wanted to make a Day of Reckoning type video game. I just didn't have the means to do it. I didn't have the money to do it. I didn't have the team. I didn't have the experience. So over the past few years, I've just been trying to really figure out what I could make. And it started off being just an action figure, a video game form action figure poser, where you could pose your 3-dimensional action figure. And I'm like, man, that could actually turn into something else. And I kept that same concept in mind, and I put in 3D models and started just posing the models. I'm like, man, this could be a game. So it was going to be a turn-based game. I didn't really have an identity, just modes. And then it was right when COVID hit, I started playing Animation Throwdown, and I was going to a wrestling event. It was when WrestleMania was going to be in Florida. And I was like, man, it'd be cool if we had something we could play against each other, something more head-to-head. And then it was the card game concept fully came into fruition. But I never was really big into Pokemon collecting cards. Like I'm like one of those individuals where I always caught on to things too late. Right. So by the time I started getting Yu-Gi-Oh cards, everybody was on the Beyblades or whatever it was that was, hot at the time. And now the card craze is really, really picking up with these rare cards and things like that. So it's interesting. It's all just kind of happening at the same time. But I definitely just wanted to make a wrestling game. And this is what I felt like I could make.
Now, you mentioned different game modes. So what are the types of game modes we can see coming to this game?
Yeah, so I'll just start with, I'll build up to my favorite one. So first of all, just the simple one versus computer. So a player versus computer, you can play. I'm building a grind mode where it's almost like My Career, but it doesn't have any storyline attached. It's just you continuously play matches.
So like an arcade ladder, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, like an arcade ladder. Online mode, that's the head-to-head via Steam is something that I think is going to be really, really fun to play. And so those are the match types, or at least the match modes. There'll be a storyline coming down the line. I don't want to force that in for the initial release, but there is a story I actually wrote out, and it will be coming into play. Now comes the fun things for me, which are all of the card-related activities. So there are different things you can actually do with your cards. For the most part, it comes down to collecting and then crafting. So you collect cards. You actually buy packs in the game virtually, all virtual currency. You don't actually use any real money after you purchase the game.
Okay.
But it's all virtual currency that you earn in different matches, and you can use those to buy card packs. And when you buy the card packs, those unlock the different cards. And then as you level up, you actually get access to additional card packs. So that's the first aspect, is just unlocking those cards. The next part of it is upgrading those cards. So as you unlock cards, you can see here, I have, I'm trying to just see what I have. So I have a level 1 out of 3 here. A 2 out of 3, and then as you can probably guess, a 3 out of 3. But you see, all of these have different values associated with them. So the entire point of the game is to get your opponent's spirit level to 0, and you'll do that by just throwing out cards and damaging them in different ways. Now, my favorite mode of the game is actually the card creator. So have you ever played a card game and wanted to just create your own card?
You know what? That would be really cool.
Yeah. So that's literally something you can do in the game, fully like animated and everything. You don't have to choose from my pre-selected poses that I've created. You can go in, use the pose creator, craft your poses up to 10, and then put them in your assortment for your card. Name your card, choose one of the pre-selected images for the card, and then choose battle stat. I don't even know how to describe it, but a battle stat template. That's the best way to put it for your card. And then you can go buy versions of your card from the virtual store and use it in the game. And that's my favorite feature in the game, because I can just see the creativity going crazy.
So WWE games, the 2K games, before when they were on the last console, like the PS3 360 era, they had a create your own move. And it was kind of like that. We had the 10 steps you could add. Did you take any inspiration from that? Or what would you say is your peak of wrestling game fandom?
Wrestling game fandom peak. Oh man. So I actually started first wrestling game I played was SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. That's still my favorite one to this day. That game is just everything. I still never 100%ed it. I own it, but it's just incredible. Day of Reckoning 2 is another game that's more for nostalgia. I really like that game. And I felt myself taking different elements from Day of Reckoning 2. For instance, you can see on the wrestler select screen when you're getting ready to start a matchup, you'll have your two characters posed, and then you'll have a 3D arena just waving in the background from different angles.
I like
That's
that.
the Reckoning 2 thing. I grabbed that straight from there. Even like the store setup where it was set up in a certain way. There's Day of Reckoning 2 inspiration, and I really just tried to put my own twist on different things. So yeah, hopefully I answered your question.
Now, Day of Reckoning, that's a game you don't hear too much of because it kind of gets lost in the fact that the GameCube wasn't the most popular system of that era. You had Shut Your Mouth, Here Comes the Pain on PS2. Those get a lot of love. But Day of Reckoning had a momentum shift feature where when you're fully on red and your opponent's on blue, they can just hit a button, momentum shift immediately. Is that something we can see implemented in the card game?
Yes, that is actually, I announced this in another interview I did. That is actually one of the cards. So there are special cards called markout moments. And these cards have drastic effects on the match. And one of those cards is a momentum shift where you actually swap momentum with your opponent. So yes, and that was a Day of Reckoning thing that I enjoyed. And I was like, how could I put a twist on it for markout and really just have fun with it?
So this is coming to Steam, which is awesome because Steam has a lot of wrestling games. You got Retromania, there's Pro Wrestling X, which is still in early access, but it is available to pick up. And this is coming now too. Why Steam in particular? I know there's like the Epic Game Store now. There's so many different platforms. Why Steam?
I would say probably for me, Steam is the most familiar. And with me being a solo developer, I didn't want to take on too many different things at one time and really just overload myself and flop with the game. Honestly, that's the reason why I did Steam. Now, as for why I did PC and Mac, the game was originally slated to go into mobile. And as I was doing mobile testing, I found myself having to really reduce the quality of the game. The arenas didn't look as crisp, and it didn't play as smoothly as I wanted it to. And it really was taken away from the vision I had for it. So I decided, okay, how about I go ahead and release this fully functional game I wanted to build for PC first. And then after that, strip parts of it down to go ahead and make a mobile version. And that's what my goal is right now.
So there will be a version of this coming to mobile in the future.
That is the goal. That is the goal.
Do you have any console aspirations? I know the Nintendo Switch has been very kind to independent developers. Is that something that you want in the future?
I would definitely say I wanted to go on Switch. That's definitely a goal. I don't know what what is the word I'm looking for? With that
process?
Yes, thank you. I don't know what that looks like right now, and that's the reason why I didn't focus on Switch, but I definitely want it on Switch.
Now, you say this will be coming late August to Steam. Will it come early access with finishing touches later? And when the game is finished, you mentioned all in-game currency. There won't be any DLCs that you have to pay for and nothing like that. It's all...
There will be DLCs. So DLC you'll have to pay for. But I mean, as far as the cards that come in the game, so right now there are over 100 cards in the game. You won't have to pay anything additional to actually get those cards in the game outside of the Steam price that you pay. Any content that I would consider continuous development, so things I have to do after you've already paid, those are things that will be paid for, but it won't be anything outrageous. I'm not dropping a $50 game with $30 downloadable content.
I respect that because that's obviously a growing concern in the marketplace where you do end up with that situation. But a game like SuperCard, it's been around, what's been like 7 years almost, maybe 8 years. Do you see this being a game that you fully focus on for years to come, or do you see yourself expanding into other games that you would eventually have to download, or is this just the one?
I definitely have other games I want to do, other experiences, and like just in general. Because I'm not sure, did you ever get a chance to see my virtual reality interests?
I did not.
So I actually recreated the old SmackDown arena, NXT arena, and Raw arenas, and made it where you can, in virtual reality, come out as the wrestlers with the music, the light show, everything.
That is awesome.
I just want to get more into experiences, I think, after Markout is released. But I need to finish Markout, and that's my #1 goal. As far as if I like longevity of the project, I definitely could see the project lasting a long time and continuing to expand because there is an endless amount of moves. Like every person in the world. Like I'm sure if you were younger with your brother and you were wrestling, like I'm just assuming you have a brother, but
I do actually. So you're right on.
Yeah, like I myself and my brothers, we were wrestling and come up with our own moves. So I know if we could do it, anybody can, and that'll just keep this game going for a long time. And I set the game up in a modular way where all like it's pretty easy to add moves, add cards, add everything. So I just definitely could see it going longer than anything anybody might expect it to go.
Now, is there anything in particular where, let's say you're watching Raw or an Independent, where somebody does a move and you just, I have to go and put that in the game now because this is too good?
Yeah, I've definitely had those moments. I'm trying to think in particular. Oh, I was watching like highlights of Kota Ibushi is when I was first working on the game, and it was that deadlift German suplex he does where he's over the dude and he goes just goes right back into a German suplex. That was a moment I had to throw it in the game. The cowboy, I call it the cowboy clothesline, but you could probably assume what move this is, where wrestler flips over. So that's a move where I seen it happen on a wrestling show, and I seen the fans react, and I was like, yeah, that's got to go in camera animations, and it's just that happens a lot, and that's what keeps me motivated is me watching matches and seeing these unique moves and saying I got to put that in. It was a Fujiwara armbar that Timothy Thatcher did when he was fighting inside of that cage match with
the fight pit. Yeah.
And when he did it, I'm like, that's going in the game. And that night, I literally made the move, but I had to really stop myself from doing that because I realized I didn't have any destination. Like I didn't really have any goals with these moves. I was just making stuff that felt good. So I had to make lists of moves and then focus on those and then make the system for everybody else to add moves in later on. And
which is smart because you're a wrestling fan like everybody, and somebody's going to see a move, want it added to a game, because this can expand into leagues. Like I don't even know how deep you've thought of this, but this can probably expand very far just because of the creativity of wrestling fans. Is that something where there will be added championship belts and championship leagues, or maybe even a make your own championship card, or just different elements like that?
Like 10%. I put like 10% of thought into things like that. Because my primary focus right now has just been getting the game working, getting the game fun, and then getting the game out. But I can definitely see this becoming a competitive game. Even just me thinking about like the New Legacy guys hopping on their Twitch stream and playing it against each other with the different tournaments they do, and maybe getting a Chris Danker in, or it'd be awesome to get like an Xavier Woods in playing the game. That's something that I can see happen, and I built features in the game to make it possible. So yeah, I honestly, I can see it happening, but I haven't put too much thought into it.
Now, you mentioned Chris Danker, you mentioned New Legacy. The wrestling games community is so strong, and you have one of the more known creators, VikingSizeGamer. He's kind of working with you guys and helping you and your community, right? What's going on there?
Yeah, so it was really just a perfect pairing because Viking James, he was looking for work to do as far as getting experience in the game realm, so he could try to build up to different positions and get into open up different doors. And I was more so since I'm just developing market on my own, I'm just really focused on building the game. And I have like zero time to interact. And now I'm getting a lot better because I have to go on and promote different things and try to interact since the game is coming out. But I really just didn't have as much time as I wanted to interact with people. So I put out, I need a community manager, and he hit me up like, hey, I'm here. And that was basically it. And we instantly just started working. He came up with different video clips of things he could do, and it's just been magic ever since. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, with a partnership like that, you're getting a made community because Viking-sized, Chris Danker, they all have such a growing fandom of their own from their time playing the WWE games. So that can really help grow. Now, I have a question because everybody loves match types. Do you think we could ever see like cage matches or a version of that put into something like a card game where there are certain handicaps put onto cards because, okay, now you're in a cage match, so different moves affect differently.
Yes, there's a steel cage match actually in the release version of Markout.
Cool.
There is actually, like, now as far as the moves and the handicaps, not necessarily, like, cards will work the same way right now, but when you start putting cards together, and this is something that is really dope in the game, you can actually merge certain cards together. And when I start releasing more cards for the cage match, because right now I think there are 5 unique cards for the cage match, which is really just different variations of throwing your opponent into the cage. And one of them is like a shooting star off the top of the cage. When you start putting matches together, move cards together, for instance, if you have a vertical suplex and a table card and you put them together, as long as I've made that a combination, you'll be able to vertical suplex your opponent through the table, and that will be a completely different card with different stats. So yeah, definitely, match types will be coming. Right now, the only match types in the game for release are standard matches, steel cage matches, as I just announced, submission matches, and that's about it right now. But as early access goes on and I start pumping out more content and we start having people create new animations, I'll be able to start adding additional match types, because all of the assets are there. I've got ladders, I've got chairs, I've got tables. You can access everything in the game, but I have to animate moves for them, and that's just what I haven't done yet.
Now that is awesome. Now, as I said, the wrestling game world is expanding so much, and there's the AEW game coming. We don't know what WWE 2K22 looks like yet. There is a deathmatch game coming. There's so much happening. Is there anything in particular that you have your eye on and you're really excited just as a fan? Are you saying, wow, I can't wait to see what this brings to the field?
Definitely GAX project, that ultra-violent wrestling. I used to watch the endorphin videos a long time ago where it was really just like the crash dummies and physics and wrestling and all that crazy stuff. And every time I see that game, it just gives me that type of nostalgia of just doing crazy stuff, like slamming your opponent off the top of a giant scaffold 100 feet in the sky into, burning tables, all types of stuff like that. So that game, and then there's also a physics-based game that Steve Matson, I think.
I came across this on Twitter not that long ago. It looks very exciting.
Yeah, and that's like just looking at the physics work, like it feels like every match will play differently. And that's the type of feel I want in a wrestling game. Is I want the dynamic fluidity of me going from just doing the same exact button combination, just in a different location and getting completely different results every time. That's the stuff I look for, and I'm crazy excited for that game to come out. So those are my top 2 I'm looking forward to.
Now, if I had to say Mount Rushmore of wrestling video games all time, what would be your 4?
All right, so just as a disclaimer, because I know people are probably going to come for me because I'm not going to have No Mercy on my list. I grew up way after No Mercy, and it's harder for a child to go back when the graphics are at a certain level and play games with the same love and nostalgia as other people. So don't come for me. But I would say SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, Day of Reckoning 2, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. I did like Here Comes the Pain. And SmackDown, this is hard. I want to say it's between either SmackDown versus Raw 2007 or WWE 13. I'll say WWE 13. So
I will say this. 2K14 to me is the peak of wrestling games.
That's the one. That's the last one I played. 14, not 13, 14.
It had The Rock on the cover. It had like everybody you could ever imagine. That to me is the peak of wrestling video games. So I'm right there with you. Very big on the Ruthless Aggression era. I get it. That era was great. The video games were probably at their peak. I do hope we see a resurgence in that way. But I am so excited for this game. I'm so excited for the card fusions, what we can do with them, the creations, and really just if you had one thing to say to players for the future, what would you tell them about what this game can be and what you want for them with this experience?
I would say come into it with an open mind, because first of all, it's not going to be like anything else you play wrestling wise. Just different moves I'm putting in, the look of it, the aesthetic of it. The characters are all Slender Men, so that's something that you'll have to just get used to. But I think once you start getting into the game and you really just start learning how the game works and what combinations work for you, what fusions work, when to level up, when to level down, I think you'll really enjoy it. And just understand that I'm open for feedback and I'm willing to work with the community. I'm not saying I'll take every single idea, but I'm willing to work with the community and really just try to build a community of its own. Like, I want to build a cult following for Markout. I'm not sure how possible it is, but I would love to have an audience that really just loves this game.
This is what I will say in regards to that. People are still modding with authority. People are still modding No Mercy. I think you got a good shot at it. If people want to follow you and Markout, where can they go?
Definitely. So on Twitter, where I post most of the updates, is Markout CCG. So that's Markout CCG for Collectible Card Game. And then you can go to the official website for Markout, which is markoutwrestling.com. Markoutwrestling.com. I feel like I'm on an infomercial right now. And if you go to markoutwrestling.com, you can actually scroll all the way to the bottom. You'll see a countdown for the game's early access release, as well as a link for you to go wishlist it right now on Steam. We're just about at 200 people wishlisting the game, which is insane to me. I didn't know if more than 10 people would want to play something I've been creating for the past 2 years. And I would love to see that number grow and see people really enjoy it.
Guys, I'm telling you, this game is going to be one of the most fun, creative experiences we can get in the world of gaming. I have it on wish list. It'll be out in August. Stay tuned to Fightful Gaming. Stay tuned to Fightful on Twitch for all that stuff. I've been Robert DeFelice. Until the next one, we're out.